Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. So let's move on to Mike's topic about the future of GBP. You wrote in the newsletter yesterday, you wrote a piece on what you thought was happening with GBP. So elaborate on that, Mike.
So the explicit end of Google business websites, the explicit end of Google domains got me thinking about GBP, particularly the dashboard, which, as David pointed out in November 2021, I can give you credit. When
still waiting for that beer. We still have not seen each other in person since that bet officially closed.
That the dashboard, the Google internal business dashboard, was largely toast, David said in November 2021. And that's proven to be the case. They have put virtually zero effort into making it work. There's been a number of serious bugs in the agency version of it. The multi-location business version of the dashboard is really a kludge and doesn't work very well. And then we're seeing all of the products that they brought out in the sort of resurgence after Google Plus, websites, posts, Q&A, all of those products, many of them, some of them have been discontinued, and some of them have just been like ignored, like posts, or pushed way down. And there's been since NMX in 2021, there has been NMX being the new merchant experience, the ability to edit your business listing in the search or maps interface. There has been no significant product rollouts or feature rollouts in GBP other than Merchant Center integration and even some things like they bought an order system for restaurants that went by the wayside. So a number of other efforts have gone by the wayside. And at this point, there doesn't seem to be much innovation or activity in GBP or a strong plan or sort of features being upgraded, fixed even. A lot of stuff is staying buggy. So it just made me think that GBP at business.google.com, as we know it, is probably days are numbered. And I don't know what that means in terms of small business suites. They seem to be less focused on. It just seems that this has become less of an importance to Google as they lay off employees so they can invest in AI or something, I guess is what they said the other day. We're going to lay you off so we can afford to invest. And maybe they're...
What do you think?
I don't really understand the big picture because I always felt that Google could offer a significant small business suite that would capture businesses, but they don't.
Which they might still do, Mike. I guess I agree, as I pat myself on the back, predicted over 2 years ago, like this was the general direction that they were taking. But I guess I disagree. I mean, I think the features that GBP offers likely will continue to live on, but there won't be a sort of dedicated product for all of that stuff, right? You're going to have, if you're a product-oriented company, Merchant Center is going to handle all the stuff that GBP is collecting today. If you're a service company, they're probably pushing you into LSAs or something like it. And for everybody else in between, there's no reason they couldn't fold this into Google Workspace, where there's a company information tab where they collect all of that stuff. And frankly, if you're, already doing things like connecting a tax ID and that sort of stuff inside a Workspace, the verification piece becomes a little bit easier theoretically. So I think that I totally agree. I think that I'm not going to predict the horizon on this one, but I do think that the product, unless there's a radical shift in leadership inside of Google, I feel like this product has been a dead man walking for a couple of years already. So
the irony is that now with AI capabilities, many of these website builders are developing, sort of much easier DIY website development, that they're shutting that product down at a time when you could, really capture. There's Mozilla's come out with a new web builder, which is AI driven, which is pretty nice. It's mostly just a landing page, pretty extensive landing page, doesn't have a lot of advanced features, but you can literally set up a website in 5 minutes. I mean, I played with it. and it's really pretty nice. And so this is a sort of a strange trajectory for them to take at a time when they could really be using AI to onboard a lot of small business customers that then would benefit their data and potentially segue into advertisers, but that's not
Therein lies the
happening.
rub. I think they've clearly found that they're offering this product. They never got any engagement from SMBs, and that they didn't convert a significant number into real ongoing ad spenders. That most of their ads revenue is still coming from major brands and agencies who are working with these SMBs anyway. So why continue to pour money into a product that doesn't make them any money? Is probably
Well,
the point.
Yeah, I read somewhere
that's
they
their
sold
rationale,
10
I'm
million
sure.
domains in the Google domain product, a lot of them through this, but still that's not very much money. That's
Yeah.
$12 a year times 10 million,
Which,
it's
pour one
$120
out for Google
million.
Domains. As I may have said when this news item came out, like, I think it was Google's best product. It was fantastic. Very
Yeah.
easy to use interface, lightning fast, just worked the way you expected it to. So I would definitely, I would shed many more tears for the demise of Google Domains than Google Business Profiles, the product.
Well, right, but Google domain seems to be related to the demise of Google websites as a primary driver of sales, right?
Yep.
But they did have 30 some million, 40 million of these built. Although again, for Google, 10 million at $12 a year doesn't amount to much for them.
Right. It doesn't
Of
move the
course,
needle if it's unless
it doesn't move
it's
the
unless
needle
it's
on
a
it.
billion unless it's $1 billion product. It's not going to be as
Not
And
interesting.
even
maybe
that
that's
moves.
the
Not even that moves the needle. As I've been complaining to you privately, all these fines getting announced for $2.5 billion. It's like they need to be reported as a percentage of annual revenue, which is like a quarter
Right.
of a percent. I mean, that's not even a drop in the bucket. $1 billion to Google. So
Well, I mean, it shows what it shows is that revenue now. I mean, we've talked about some of the internal dynamics at Google and how those may be responsible for some of the problems in the products or the neglect that exists in some of these situations that we've been talking about over the past few weeks. But they're driven by, I mean, whatever sort of internal promotional political dynamics, but revenue is the overriding consideration. I mean, it didn't used to be, certainly with Google, but now it seems to be the dominant decision making criterion in every single one of these cases, which I suppose is just the logic of capitalism. But it seems ultimately counterproductive that everything that they're going to do is going to be based on the revenue opportunity, because they need to do certain things, quality control and building products that don't have immediate revenue impact. That I mean, that they need to do those things, and they're pushing those things aside, I think.
but maybe with
counter argument.
GBP,
Good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
well, I was just going to say with GBP, we've always known small businesses are hard. They're hard to get money out. They're hard to grow. They're hard to get to scale. They're hard to, in the end, get big enough to really be a successful Google-sized business with. And maybe they've just come to that conclusion, right? That this is never going to be for them the $10 billion idea that they originally hoped.
And
Well,
the $10
but they
billion,
but
$10 billion today, importantly, $10 billion today is not what $10 billion meant to them in 2012 or whenever this sort of business builder
that's right.
concept was getting bandied
That's
about.
right. When their ad revenues were smaller. But the other factor is the lack of competition that Google, notwithstanding all the kind of tumultuousness of the AI, the introduction of AI in the market, Google really, especially when it comes to local now, has very little competition. I mean, there's some verticals maybe, but you could argue from a sort of a general search standpoint, there's no competition for Google. So they can afford, probably in their mind, to, they built up all this GBP and related products in part to collect data, to get better data from directly from business owners, as opposed to crawling, scraping, licensing, and thereby to win this sort of local search consumer game. And they have won that. And so now they can just let
Yep.
things, erode, because there's nobody to challenge them. Yelp's not going to do it. Microsoft's not going to do it. Maybe in isolated verticals, you've got mobile users who go directly to apps, but nobody is effectively challenging them from a horizontal standpoint. And so they don't, it's not as important for them to maintain, if something slips, doesn't matter so much because it's not going to impact their search volumes.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.